Conley, Sourcing Operations Manager at David Jones Country Road. I'm Alex Walrut, Head of Office for Australia, New Zealand and Japan, and I will be moderating today's panel. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us. I'd like to start by having each of you briefly introduce yourself, the organisation you work for, and what you do. So I'll start with you, Catherine.
Oh, hi. Hi, Alex. Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm very glad to have this opportunity to meet you here. And I just give you a brief introduction. I'm Catherine Kang, and the company I'm working for is Sunshine Fashion, Accessories and Garments. And I'm the managing director of the company. So Sunshine is a high fashion supplier and who is working closely with buyers from some big fast fashion retailers in the world. And our customers including bestseller Inditex, Acadia, New Look, Hema, Forever New, Cotton On, NKD, and Morris's in America, etc. And our head office is based in Shanghai. We have a designers based in Europe, which has allowed us to get closer to our buyers and make the communication more specific, efficient. And then we have 3 local offices in China, one in Shanghai, one is in Zhejiang, and one is in Fujian. And our office in China is particularly looking after for all the merchandising, QC, and compliance. So we mainly focus on bespoke design service for soft accessories, including knitwear, woven scarves, hat, gloves, caps, bags, etc. And I'm very happy to meet you here. Now I give in to the next one.
Thank you very much. Emily?
Hi everyone, it's a pleasure to be meeting with you today. So as Alex mentioned, I manage ESOP's ethical sourcing program. So ESOP is a global beauty company that was originally founded in Melbourne, Australia. So we're still headquartered in Melbourne, but we also have a dual head office location in London. And over just recently, we became part of the Natura & Co group, which includes Natura, which is a Brazilian skincare company, The Body Shop, which I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with, which is headquartered in the UK, and also recently Avon as well. So as a group, we're a publicly listed beauty company that's really at the heart of the whole group, and ESOP as well is at the heart of what we do, is really trying to be a beauty company for the world and really trying to live that ethos in how we engage with the community, how we treat our employees, and of course how we source as well. So yeah, I'll pass on to the next speaker.
Fantastic. Thank you, Emily. Anil?
Good morning, good afternoon, and namaste to everyone. So I'm from Kariwala Industries. We are in the business of spreading happiness. And the products that we do are sustainable cotton bags, fair trade bags, organic bags, and then also clothing, workwear, personal protective equipment, clothing, etc. And I happen to be the sole keeper of the business. Officially, I am designated as the CEO for technical purposes, but I like to be known as the sole keeper of the business, and that's what we do. We are very, very socially compliant, very sustainable. We breathe in sustainability and responsibility right from the chairman to the janitor, everyone. So that's a little bit about us. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Anil. And finally, Sebastian.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. I think firstly, I'd like to say a big thank you to Alex and the Sedex team for the opportunity to join this wonderful panel today. It's an absolute pleasure. As Alex said, my name is Sebastian. I'm the Sourcing Operations Manager across Country Road Group and David Jones. And I'm proud to lead a dedicated team driving our ethics, compliance and traceability and responsible sourcing of suppliers, factories, and materials. We're working with over 500 direct manufacturing suppliers and over thousands of global and domestic brands that we stock in our department stores. So working with some of Australia's most loved fashion brands, we're focused on collaboration with our suppliers to make sure that we can build capacity within the value chain. And we're really working to leverage those long-term relationships to make sure that we can protect human rights, drive sustainability, and tackle modern slavery. We've been connecting with suppliers via the Sedex platform for roughly about 5 years now. And we think this is a key tool in monitoring our factory sites compliance in the sourcing space.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much, Sebastian. I'll stay with you, given that you're involved in the management aspect of it and obviously have been using Sedex for a number of years. How do you manage or what do you see in terms of innate tension between procurement side of a business and sustainability?
Yeah, I think there's always a tension or challenge when there's a customer or buyer asking for something new. It's really a challenge that ends up relating to cost, and whether that's either a product cost or an operational cost. The challenge of a supplier having to go above and beyond or outside their traditional scope by sourcing materials they haven't before, adding additional audit requirements, signing up to global certifications, all challenges. But in saying that, as an industry, we've got to continue to push those boundaries, challenge the norm to make a sustainable change. So to push those boundaries and close that tension, as you say, we really need collaborative suppliers to table change and move beyond their current scope. And at the same time, you need collaborative buyers to pay more when required, to drive the marketing of those key programs so that we can actually take steps forward and nurture that relationship.
Interesting. Emily, you would agree with all that?
Great. Yeah, I definitely would agree with Sebastian. I guess the only thing that I would add in terms of the internal stakeholder management is something that I have really been proactive about is ensuring that ethical sourcing is considered right at the start of new product development with the buyer or like the procurement team, the packaging team, the product team, whoever's driving that sort of sourcing, to ensure that all the options that are being considered for a particular product have all been already sort of considered from an ethical sourcing perspective. It does mean more work for me usually doing that, but it means that our whichever team, say the product team, do have the comfort that they're able to then consider quality and cost, knowing that all the options available to them are already meeting our minimum requirements. So that's probably something else I'd add. Yeah.
Okay, great. Catherine, you're on the other side of the table. How do you see this tension manifest itself?
Oh, hi. And I'm so glad to hear from Sebastian and Emily. First of all, as a supplier, I'm literally, sitting in the middle of you, because we always have this debating or situation, like a buyer approaching us, say, okay, we want something different. We love to have the sustainable range. And we say, oh yes, that's what we have really driving for. We really focus on the sustainable solutions. So we're working on that. And also we were talking along with the CSR department, with all the sourcing side and compliance side, to make sure every stage involved into the sustainable rate and meeting all the compliance level. But when we're finally talking about price, wow, it's something like, oh, hold on a minute, it's a bit too expensive. is costing too much. Compared with the same product, for example, we used to have a debate with one of my buyer, and last season, for example, we have done the conventional product for 100% polyester woven scarf. And then this season, we want to do something different, which is replace the polyester, regular polyester into the recycled polyester. However, the cost has increased quite a lot. Then she can't really afford it because she said, wow, I need to work here, on my markup, which doesn't make sense. Then she's giving the target, which is also not really workable if you want to have the sustainable range. So this is our debating bit. And we have the one thing good about, from our side, because we always believe in the transparency and honesty. So we always keep the communication very clear and a transparent level. So we actually talking to the buyer, we share all the information, every stage we involved to buyer. And, sometimes, not every time, sometimes buyer can understand, then we can reach a solution and we can close the deal. But sometimes we just say, okay, sorry, we can't really afford the sustainable range. Then we have to put they aside and waiting for other time. So yeah, I'm quite, also one of the interesting, I like to be listen and share more is from not understanding more from the buying side and the compliance side from the customer. What you expect as a supplier to offer, and we can make the sustainable products more easy and affordable to really start to develop more and more, replace with the traditional products. That is also my interest and my aim, my target for the next. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Anil, do you find that sustainability is at the start of the conversation, or is it at the end?
I would say it is in the beginning, it is in the middle, and it is in the end, provided you completely internalize it. So far as we are concerned, we consider business not merely as an activity, but we consider it to be a philosophy. So for us to believe, if you want to believe into something, you have to consider it as a philosophy. Just like life is a philosophy, business itself is a philosophy. And I believe, like as Catherine was mentioning, there are sometimes you have to let go of some orders. In our cases, we do that, but not for a specific order. We let go of our customers by themselves, not just a product, not just a specific deal, unless the customer ab initio is somebody who is married to the idea of sustainability. And sustainability is one of the famous quotes from Thomas Friedman is when he was speaking about Mother Nature. So it's philosophy, Mother Nature, as long as it is married to Father Prophet, she is nurtured well. So that's the philosophy that we live by. And in the keynote address, as Madam Jessica was mentioning about technically compliant business. So we have chosen that we don't want to be technically compliant. We want to be inherently compliant. We will let go of an opportunity, let go of not just an opportunity, let go of a customer, unless the customer is married to the idea of ESG, environment, social, and governance. So that's what my take on that is.
Okay, interesting.
Thank you.
Interesting indeed. Okay, so talking about collaboration.
Sorry, Alex.
No.
I just had something that came to mind just thinking about what Anil and Catherine mentioned. I think something that I was thinking about while they were both speaking is also something that we've been grappling with, which is also educating the customer about and also our marketing and some of our product teams about the benefits of a sustainable range, for example, if it's in the fashion industry, and how you can actually capture that ROI through to sort of account for additional costs in the production, and really educating the customer that if you want product that is
Sustainable.
made fairly, sourced ethically, then it will cost more. And that's just you can't have it both ways. And obviously it's the businesses that do it best are the ones who can really figure out ways to be more efficient and innovative in trying to still drive down cost and still get those sustainability and ethical sort of outcomes. But I think there's a real benefit in really bringing your customer and some of your internal stakeholders along in that journey and trying to educate them on the benefits that it can have in terms of sales and marketing, if you do it in the right way, obviously trying to avoid greenwashing.
Do you also do that with the suppliers? How do you sell it to the suppliers?
Well, for us, it depends on the type of supplier. If we're looking from an environmental perspective, it's quite manageable, because oftentimes being more environmentally, having stronger mechanisms for managing your environmental impact usually results in savings. And so if you can point out, for example, where the waste is and how, by recycling certain packaging materials or reusing them, you're actually lowering costs, then I think just putting it into those terms of, energy savings, cost savings, those types of things, it's for our manufacturers in particular, it's been quite a clear conversation when you move it in that way. It doesn't necessarily always have to be an altruistic endeavor. Obviously that's the pursuit, that we have suppliers that really align with us and our values, but at the very least, if we can be on the same page that being a sustainable business in this day and age is actually also being a good business, and we'll have benefits, business outcomes, good business outcomes, then if we can at least be on that same page, then usually we can move forward. So that's probably one of the things that I try and highlight with certain manufacturers.
Fantastic. Sebastian, it's the same in fast fashion or in fashion generally?
Yeah, sorry, Alex, I didn't quite catch you there.
You're seeing similar things in fashion in terms of sustainability and marketing sustainability to the consumer?
Yeah, I think, obviously we know that there's a growing trend out there in the community for our customers to want and to be seeking out more sustainable brands. I think it's, it's becoming a driver of customers, and, it's up to us to be more responsible in the way we do business, and to share that knowledge both outwardly, as Emily said, to our customers, but also down backwards through the supply chain. And I think as you rightly, someone said before about maturity, we've got complex supply chains with many supply chain actors. We've got big suppliers, we've got progressive suppliers, and then we've got small suppliers as well. Jessica in the keynote speech talked about, the small farmer versus the big multinational food enterprise. And I think everyone's at a different maturity level, and it's for us to capture and nurture and collaborate with the big people that are already on that journey, and then share the learnings with the tail, and bring them along, and hopefully the industry can move together.
Fantastic. On that note of collaboration, can you give me some examples of successful efforts involving collaboration between yourself as a buyer and suppliers?
Yeah, I think if people on this call haven't seen, Country Road very much have pioneered some of the successful collaboration with farmers right through the supply chain. We've been very close to our suppliers, our farmers, our spinning mills, our knitters or garment makers. And we've managed to bring Australian cotton right through the supply chain and verify that scientifically. proving that origin back to farm. And that collaboration didn't come about easy, I would say. You know, we introduced the farmers to our suppliers, and we had to make sure that these suppliers had an open mind towards innovation. We proposed the idea to a number of suppliers, and it was one supplier that really took it upon themselves to connect that value chain, to really understand the goal that we were trying to achieve and share that vision. And then overcoming the obstacles along the way was really important. And the result's been a huge success and a great example to showcase, you know, to our broader supply base of how to collaborate effectively.
Fantastic. Catherine, any examples you'd like to share? Emily, Anil, any Catherine examples?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, well, just because we were started talking about any sustainabilities, and I would like to just continue our subject with the sustainable range and sharing some examples of what we have working together with our current buyers and customers on the sustainable range, because it has been, you know, get more and more awareness in the recent couple of years. But actually, we started to looking into sustainable solutions back in end of 2014, 2015. So we have tried a lot of options because our philosophy is the product should be fashionable, affordable, and available. So when we're looking for the solutions, we're looking different materials, fabric that could using in all soft accessories. And for example, last season, we started to working with one of our biggest customers. We initially talking about sustainable range, and she's very excited. So when we get to this information and, you know, yes, go ahead, we started to looking and searching carefully about the product range, what product is suitable to making the sustainable range for this customer. And also, of course, affecting with the price. So we share all those information with the buyer because we analysis about, you know, what, for example, if we try to making recycled polyester, we need to get all the JRS qualified, the young meal. And by, you know, understanding the costing costing concerns, we are not doing the food chain, but we are trying to using unified yarn to giving to the buyer and also considering the cost and other sensitive issues. We're making 50-50. So we are go one step forward to the sustainable range. And for the same idea, we develop different product to helping her with the whole range. For example, with the scarves, we make beanies, we make gloves. And also we started with making BCI cotton socks together with our trunks range, which is the same, they all cotton based. So we made BCI cotton trunks. And we only started from a very small selection, but just try to get into the range and also making the customer, the ending customer who working into her store and they're buying to be aware that sustainable is the way going forward. And also because the effort we have put into, we make it sustainable, more affordable. Okay, I have to be honest, it's a bit cheap, expensive than the normal one, but it's not that expensive. It's totally affordable and very reasonable. So this is, by doing this, we have reached a good season from the sustainable range. So this season, and she's got more encouragement, and we actually has explored more product range in a much bigger level. So this season could be exciting. And then if you have the horse next year, we can share the experience again.
Okay, great. Exciting. Anil, have you, with sustainability being central to everything you do, have you got some examples to share, or have you had buyers who may have been reticent, who you've encouraged towards a path of sustainability?
In the beginning, more than a decade ago, where sustainability was more of a technical thing that without inherently believing in the cause. But when we engaged, we collaborated with our customers as well as suppliers, not just customers only, as well as suppliers, that we discussed out, we would have discussions, we would have rather philosophical conferences, chats, which we have even done during Zoom calls, that beginning with purpose of doing anything is to begin with some purpose. The purpose is, our purpose is spreading happiness. We promise to our customers, it is not just sustainability that we are offering. We are offering you something that the more you divide it, the more it multiplies, and that's happiness. So at the end of the day, when you do these products, when you buy this thing from us, you would never have, thank God it's Friday, I would never have, oh God, it's a Monday morning. You won't have that. So that's what we assured them. That's what we assured them. A visit to our factories should be like a visit to a resort, which is not only for a customer, but for our workers, for every employee of the company. That's what we wanted to create an environment. We create an environment where every employee would be able to perform. If everyone is performing, then everyone is a salesperson. We don't have a sales team. Believe me, we don't have a sales team. We only have people who engage with customers, and that begins, as I was mentioning, with due respect, that begins with a janitor at our premises. They would engage as much with the customer as the soul keeper, the so-called CEO would engage with the customer. That's how we collaborate, basically.
Fantastic. Emily, anything to add?
Thanks. It's a little bit of a different collaboration that I was thinking of talking about. And I guess it's absolutely important to be collaborating with your suppliers in terms of what they're actually manufacturing, or, you know, whatever service they might be supplying to your business. But I guess something else that I was thinking about is, how do we ensure that ESOP is investing in our suppliers and in that partnership ongoing, and how can we make sure that our impact via our whole supply chain is one that's sustainable in terms of the environment, and sustainable through that type of lens, but also means that it's set up to be there for many decades to come. And so with that in mind, a recent collaborative effort that comes to mind is our wonderful sandalwood oil supplier, which is the Dutjan Sandalwood Oils, who actually won a Sedex Award for Best Collaborative Effort a couple of years ago. So at the beginning, yeah. So at the beginning of the pandemic, there was a particular concern around the local Indigenous community that helped source the sandalwood, and the difficulties in access to sanitation and healthcare. And in a bit of a mad rush, our R&D team and our head of supply chain were in the lab over the weekend at the request of Dutjan, and like pull together a hand sanitizer, which we already do supply, a hand sanitizer that was our formulation that was sort of had sandalwood as the hero fragrance, and then also collaborated with Givaudan in manufacturing a whole bunch of hand sanitizers, and then along with some of our other products, and getting that over to the communities. And it's a small thing, and we definitely want to grow this partnership with Dutjan and a lot of our other suppliers. But I think just going to that idea of investing in the actual communities from which you source, to sort of set them up for success, and set them up to, you know, for all your workers and all their families to live happy, healthy lives, is definitely something that I've been thinking about more in terms of how to really strengthen our supplier partnerships.
Okay. So taking it back to the beginning, how do you introduce these concepts to a supplier for the first time, who may be expecting a very different commercial relation or purely commercial relationship? How do you introduce these concepts? And I'll pose that to you, Emily.
So I think it's really important to set the tone from the beginning, which I've sort of already mentioned. So if we can get our buyers or our product or packaging team, whoever's making that first contact with suppliers, to really set that tone and making sure that they feel comfortable, that they understand what ESOP's requirements are, they understand what our tone is, which is really, we're really wanting a strong commitment. We're really wanting our suppliers to be on that journey with us. And so making sure that that's sort of communicated upfront with any new suppliers is really important. And then from when I make contact with suppliers at more of a screening, setting the tone type of stage, it's really important for me to just set up that this isn't just a one-stop. Do you meet our requirements? Yes, no. If yes, then you can proceed and you'll never hear from me again. I really try and set that tone that this is an ongoing relationship. This is an ongoing partnership. This is where we're at right now for ESOP, and we want to make sure that you meet those minimum requirements, but we're really wanting to touch base with you regularly, obviously from a compliance and monitoring perspective, but also we're starting to have, through the Natura 2030 commitments to life, we're starting to really grow what we're trying to do in terms of zero net carbon emissions by 2030. We've got some really ambitious targets that we're trying to meet. So, and that's not something we're going to put on suppliers straight away, but we really want to set that expectation that this is the direction that we're going. Are you on board with that? And we'll be there to support you and bring you along, but we really want you to be willing to, I guess, grow with us as we move on our journey.
So for a larger organisation like David Jones Country Road Group, Sebastian, how do you manage that at scale with a global supply chain with suppliers at a variety of different stages?
Yeah, Alex, I think it really comes down to communication and touch points, and really, as Emily said, you know, it's just the start. Just the ethical sourcing piece is just the start. It's really actually getting that purpose, as Anil said, throughout your organisation. So how do you drive that purpose through your buying teams, and then make that cascade into your supply chain? And when we see true collaboration or good examples of collaboration, we see that alignment of purpose, and you see that ease of sourcing, where the needs and the wants of both parties are met in the middle, and you jointly come together and you have successful relationships when that happens. It's not an easy one. You've got to be small and large at the same time. You've got to be working deep down at one-on-one level with suppliers and with buyers, and then you've got to be at a high level, talking to executives, you know, having supplier workshops and supplier conferences, pitching ideas, and then at a micro level, taking those ideas and bringing them operationally into work.
Okay, so Catherine, from your side, how does that manifest itself? How often are you speaking to different buyers about different aspects of their ethical sourcing programs? And how do you manage all those competing, well, not competing, but complementary, but still time-consuming requirements?
Oh, hi. Well, actually, you know, from Sunshine, from our perspective, we as a supplier, a vendor, we actually sitting in the middle. We are facing some customers, and also we are facing our supplier base, our factory base. So if you could imagine, we are working like in the metric on the maybe the horizontal way. We have different customers, maybe like a bestseller here. We've got indie text here, you know, different customer here. And then we have different requirement by different compliance level. So, well, their sourcing compliance, their technical level. And then we're working on each category. We have figured out with the current our factory base, which factory is suitable at what level. And then we will fill into the metric box. So we are trying to select our factory carefully by finding mix and matching the best customer who have the best factory to work together. That is our aim. And we believe, it takes two to a party. So if we want to have a good business, good fun to work together, we need to make sure everyone is happy. So we're giving fair opportunities to the factory. For example, some factory, like Emily and Sebastian mentioned just now, maybe not meeting their compliance level for now, but I don't think it means never. It will have, you know, it take time to come. So we need to giving them a fair opportunity. So as a vendor, we were selecting our factory very carefully because our principle is crucial for us to only working with factories that have meeting the compliance level. If they can't, if the owner never ever want to make the commitment, then we have to work away. We have to learn to work away. But if the factory is willing to, however, they have a gap, they can't reach to the level now, then we were working together with the factory because we believe if it's a good factory, it has the determination, try to making all the compliance, we should working along with our factory. So together we can giving our customer, the buyer, what they want because they can produce the fantastic product at a good price and also they can comply. So why, I can't see why my buyer doesn't want to working with factory. So I was taking this time like a training process. So gradually we're taking time, but also in the same time, we will also understand what the buyers want. Like, MV mentioned they have taken procedure and steps. We have working with some customers, for example, last year, we worked with Inditex. They have given this 2025, but 2025 all go for organic. So last year we started with organic cotton, making trunks, boxers, and socks. So some of our factory can meet their compliance level, so they can work in last year, but some can't. Then we're leaving to later stage. We never say, okay, no, you can't join us. You're not ready yet. Just do the preparation, and when you get ready, let me know. I will make sure my buyers know. Then we can work together again, because the target, the mission is by 2025. So we still got time. And the same thing again this year. Now we have started working with a bestseller on all over packagings like poly bags. Have to using recycled poly bag. The same thing. We're working together with their nominate packaging supplier. So we order the packaging for our factory because it's a new thing for factory. And it's not fair for them to be really familiar with, but we're an expert in this area. So we do this work for our factory. But helping our factory is also helping us. And eventually, my buyer is happy because she gets what she wanted and her boss wanted. I think that is the way we're working in the long term, regardless it's sustainable or it's about any compliance issue. I think that's why we are working here. Yeah.
So the overarching themes seem to be communication, consistency, and commitment.
Yep.
Fantastic.
Right.
So I'll take the opportunity just to ask our attendees, if you have questions for our panelists, feel free to use the Q&A box or chat and send them over, and I would be more than happy to ask them. Meanwhile, let's talk about COVID-19 and the impact that has had on sustainability and collaborative efforts. Anil, how has COVID-19 affected your activities?
Some people would gun for my neck if I were to say that probably COVID-19 is the greatest opportunity presented by nature to mankind. I think it's the time for us, thanks to the lockdowns and everything, we all had an opportunity when we're not able to go out, we were all able to come inside to understand and explore and re-explore and reboot and reimagine what is it that we can do better. For example, the very conference that we are having right now. So I have attended sustainability conferences worldwide, including Sedex in London and in Thailand, speaking about sustainability, but taking an aircraft, taking a plane 6,000 miles, burning fossil fuel. But we are doing the same thing. So COVID-19, I think, is presenting opportunities. Of course, indeed, there is collateral damage. Every time there is a major revolution, there is a major paradigm shift, there is collateral damage. And unfortunately, collateral damage is to a very small extent with human life, which is happening. But this is probably opening up many more new vistas of engaging with, and it is difficult times when you get to know the value of who your true friend is. So if you know your business, your principles, your fundamentals, your value system is your true friend, who is the customer, who is the supplier sticking thick and thin with you, I think that presents a great opportunity, which in happy times, we normally don't notice.
Interesting. Interesting indeed. So a question has come through about how to manage modern slavery with logistics and indirect suppliers, particularly when you're dealing with suppliers where there is low spend value. So let me pose that question to Sebastian first. What do you do with indirect suppliers and suppliers where there is low value? How do you encourage those suppliers who may otherwise not be involved, not have started the responsible sourcing journey, to invest the time and effort in those activities?
Yeah, I think as we're talking through this, a lot of the common thread is, you know, the maturity of businesses and where they're at, and those indirect suppliers or sub-tier suppliers, you know, they're going to be the hardest ones, and as we know, the theme of modern slavery is hidden in plain sight, and it's often deep in the supply chain and challenging to find and assess, find and eradicate. They're really challenging steps to take. But what we've got to do as an industry and us as a retail brand, we're trying to bring our suppliers along. Firstly, awareness is the first point. So how do we make our buyers understand modern slavery? You know, it's a totally new concept to businesses, as Jessica said, that even their job as the government is to build that awareness across Australian businesses. But then further to that is how can we cascade that awareness to our suppliers and then ongoing to our sub-suppliers? So yes, in an ideal world, we'd manage every tier of the supply chain, have compliance levels right the way through. And it's absolutely complex. I think the positive steps that the Modern Slavery Act or the Australian Modern Slavery Act, but internationally, modern slavery is a growing topic globally. You know, we're seeing the French duty of vigilance. We're seeing the UK Modern Slavery Act just about to be reassessed. There's conversations in New Zealand as well. So, you know, we're seeing that elevation of modern slavery as a topic. And I think that awareness globally and that awareness deeper down the supply chain will grow over time. And we have to share that as buyers.
So, Catherine, you sit obviously in the middle. How do you broach the topic of modern slavery or ethical sourcing with a new factory that may know nothing about it?
Oh, hi. Yeah, thank you. Us as a vendor, as a supplier sitting in the middle, and when we approach into factories, we actually, because we not only do a pay lip service to an audit report, but we taking actions to go to the factory and also because we have a local office, we go to regular visit to our factories. And also if they have some, because we're doing fashion accessories, we have some, well, it's not indirect, but we have got extended factories, for example, like printing mill, like in the people who doing all the embroideries, and that's, we also checking on that. We're not because we don't trust in our factories, but we want to be like seeing is believing. So we go there and physically visiting and understand the situation. So we will make sure, you know, there's no child labor, of course, there's no modern slavery be involved. And if there's involvement, my people will tell me in up from the first time. So we were taking action immediately because we have gave a very clear communication to all the factory we know that some fundamental principles we can't debate on, and this is all agreed. And that's why we said we taking the compliance at a very, very serious level. And as I said, not every factory agreed with share our philosophy or our belief, which is I appreciate, and we have to let go. If they reach to that point, they not willing to change, then we have to let go, because we can't letting factory, you know, not meeting those levels to working together, because it's just totally against our philosophy, and that's not should be in the fashion world. That's not the right information we're sending to the outside world anyway. Yeah.
Okay, so is it a case of education, or is it setting clear expectations and requirements of your suppliers?
We have very clear information to every factory we're working for. So that's why we have people working and checking there. So when they're checking there, they will make sure everything, they checking again. If they need some, you know, they finding some potential issues, they do some problem shootings, they will go through the communication or relatively training, because we need to dig out what's the root of the problem, and we need to find a solution for them, giving them time to making change, revise. But then if they determine a no, then we have to say, let go. We can't working together. Yeah.
Emily, anything to add?
I guess I'm just thinking about the original question, which in some ways supply chain, and I sit in the supply chain realm, is in a kind of a lucky position if you've already got quite a robust ethical sourcing program. And thinking about the question mentioning logistics and also indirects, obviously there's indirects in terms of supply chain, like your tier 2 and onwards. But if I'm thinking about indirects in the sense of marketing firms that we're using and catering across the business, and what construction companies we're working with for our retail stores, that's also considered, you know, indirect procurement. And I guess the starting place, particularly because a lot of those industries are a lot less mature, particularly when they are smaller businesses. And it's just something that I think is important is really starting off, if you're a business that's needing to report on modern slavery, is that mapping exercise and really looking at all the things that are procured, and first of all, understanding what all those things that are procured, what they are. And then rather than looking at risk, which I think is often a misstep of businesses, is the risk based on how much you spend, really looking at the risk based on modern slavery and what's the likelihood, where are the high risk areas. So some of the ones that I've mentioned, catering,
cleaning,
IT services, subcontracting, cleaning, those sort of things are actually not, everyone goes straight to supply chain, which obviously there are plenty of high risk areas within supply chain, but something like cleaning, that might be managed by your head office staff or some of your regional offices. So rather than the first step going straight to the cleaning company and talking to them, blah, 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 I think we need to really take a step back and then really map out where the risks are, where the high risk areas are, and really start engaging with our internal stakeholders and educating them, like, look, this is what we're going to be reporting on. What you're procuring, if you do have an sort of decentralized indirect procurement, what you're procuring is actually in a high risk area. And so we're going to need to start taking these steps, I think is a really beneficial way to start in those, those areas that you wouldn't really think about.
Fantastic. So Anil, how do you source, how do you manage these conversations with your domestic suppliers, particularly smaller ones? How do you take them on the journey?
We do it almost exactly the same way as Sebastian and Emily was mentioning. They mentioned about both of them, it was a very common thread about taking the steps. I think to engage a supplier or even a customer from moving from the state of compulsiveness to the state of consciousness. That's what Sebastian was mentioning about educating. He was mentioning capture and nurture. That's what, and having an open mind. That's what Emily was mentioning, how they engaged the sandalwood supplier who got the award from Sedex a couple of years ago. To raise whether any relationship with a supplier or with the customer, or even personal relationships also, it's always about the steps that you are mentioning. It's not about the shoes that you wear, but about the steps that you take. If you just do it, it doesn't work. If you just go ahead and do it and take those steps, then you are able to reach the destination faster. I know some of my friends who do yoga, the first thing they promise themselves to do yoga, to go and buy a full, complete new yoga set and put it up one day, put it up on social media, and from the next day, again in the state of compulsiveness, no longer conscious. So we engage, it's, I think, educating and sharing your value systems. And at the end of the day, so in commerce, one thing works. The most important thing that works is the fear and greed. The two factors, they are two human emotions. So in the beginning, some things, the only fear that you can you can hold to a supplier is fear, and a carrot to a customer. To customer, we can't hold a stick. We only can, so what we try from our end to do is to express that how we can engage with you more consciously. How can we help you becoming more conscious in what you are doing?
Okay. Another question has come through. How do you convey to customers that the sustainability journey will cost extra? So I'll stay with you, Anil, on this. How do you explain to people that it may cost extra?
It actually doesn't cost extra. I would say that in 25 years ago, when we chose and took it upon ourselves to do completely ethical and sustainable business, and it was, customers would ask, why should I pay more because your costs are more? So, but that time it was a competitive disadvantage, but today it is a competitive advantage. For example, today, like we have solar power. So when we installed solar panels 20 years ago, it cost a bomb. It was commercially unviable. But today, having solar panels is competitive advantage. To have rainwater harvesting, to have a recycling program, and all those things that are saving money. They do require, and I happen to be chartered accountant, but it doesn't need to be chartered accountant to calculate the net present value of a future expense. If you expend something, if you have a future annuity, if you have something saved over a period of 10 months, 10 years, how much is it the net present value today? So, and businessmen love numbers, and as I mentioned, businessmen love profits. So if it is married to profit, then it makes sense. I give you an example of, in India, seatbelts were made compulsory only 15 to 20 years ago. You know, at that time, people would put on seatbelt only if the cops were watching. You know, some enterprising people had T-shirts with seatbelt printed on that. So that, believe me, there were some people who had seatbelts printed on that. And so that the cops, but now everyone wears it and the cops don't look at, they don't care. So it is in your own interest. So that's what it is with cost. It is in the interest of the customers that if they take from a company which is technically sound, sustainably stable, and philosophically intertuned with them, I don't think any customer would like children working in a factory just because they are able to give a cheap price. I don't think they would be, most of us would not be able to go to bed well and have a nice weekend after having done that. Most of us.
Catherine, anything you would like to add?
Yeah, hi. I think I totally agree with Anil. I think he has done a very great analysis, because when we're talking about expensive, we need to compare apple to apple. For example, when you're talking about sustainable is expensive than traditional, well, the conventional products. That because they are not the same technology. They're not the same thing, really. One is recycled, one is not recycled. One has a huge impact on the environment. One hasn't got that much. So it's not the same thing. So I think we need to say beyond the figure, beyond the cost. And that's the one thing I always working alongside with all my buyers, and again try to tell them, okay, on the figure, the cost, you say it's expensive. However, you need to say beyond the figure, the product we're doing is not the same. Really, it's not the same product. And maybe by the technology's development, maybe next year it'll get cheaper. I have already seen the result, from 5 years ago, the GRS certification, the numbers of young meals has already more and more youngs available in China. So the cost has been improved from that point. And that's why we say we are constantly searching for solutions for buyer, which is you let me know what the product you need, your expectation, and I find the best possible solution available in the market for you. So we need to compare from apple to apple. Yeah.
Fantastic. And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, we are out of time. On behalf of Sedex globally, the regional offices, and of course our attendees, thank you very much for joining us in this panel discussion. Catherine Kang, Managing Director of Sunshine Fashion Accessories and Garments, Emily Amati, Global Ethical Sourcing Coordinator at ASOP, Anil Kariwala, CEO of the Kariwala Group, and Sebastian Conley, Sourcing Operations Manager at David Jones Country Road Group. Thank you very much for joining us. Have yourselves a lovely afternoon. We will now take a 10-minute break and then pick up with the next keynote. Thank you all very much.